I really like the set of practice scenarios UBC provides for free on their website. So I want to take a look at another one. I'm going to modify this one slightly because I want to look at it from a different angle. So this is going to be us over here. We are going to be the doctor again in this circumstance. So you equal doctor. And you have a patient over here who will be the actor in the room, right? So this is when you have patients. Okay. So you're here, you're a patient, and your patient has cancer, right? And his cancer allows him to have, let's say, 5 years to live with treatment. So 5 years to live with treatment. And let's say 1 year without. Okay, so 5 years with treatment, 1 year without. Now this case is going to be similar to the birth control one we saw in the last video. So as soon as I show you what this patient wants to do, you should right away be drawing connections to what we saw in the last one, right? You should be able to see what type of principles we're going to need to acknowledge in this video. So this over here, this patient's going to come in and he's going to want to pursue alternative medicine. He's going to pursue alternative medicine. Now, talking about alternative medicine, I'm talking about stuff with no, scientific or medical research, but to back it up, right? I'm talking about things like acupuncture. I know there's going to be a lot of people who will swear by acupuncture, but let's just, for this video, assume that there is no proof backing up these alternative medicines. So I'm talking about herbal medicines, even faith healing, if you want to add that into that in this case, or acupuncture, right? I don't want to get into the acupuncture field because I know a lot of people are defensive about that, so I'm going to try to avoid that. So let's just say you want to pursue alternative medicine. Now it's similar to what we saw in the other video, right? Because right away, what should we see in our mind, right? We see this, we know that there's going to be two things we're going to want to balance out. We're going to have to balance out the respect for our patient's autonomy, his ability to make his own informed decision, and our duty as a physician to look out for his best interests. So we're going to have to find a balance between these two things again. We're going to look at it in a similar manner, but since alternative medicine is normally a topic you're going to see in your interview, I think it'd be best if we look at a complete case, dedicated to it. So we know that the first step for us to do is to solve problems, right? Or figure out what the problem is going to be. So in this case, what is the problem, right? A patient wants to undergo alternative treatment instead of chemo. There we go. So patient wants to undergo alternative treatment instead of chemo. What do we do in this circumstance? Well, most important part, as always, is going to be to collect information. We can't go ahead and tell this guy what to do if we don't have the information. So we go ahead and collect and get a better understanding of what he knows about the situation. Make sure he's just not saying this based on a few things he's overheard, right? These are actually going to be things that he knows are going on. So collect information, What type of alternative treatments are you talking about? There's a bunch of different kinds. So what type do you have in mind? What type of alternative medicine do you have in mind, right? If he already doesn't have any form of alternative medicine in mind, it probably, it means he's not really set on doing this. Maybe he just doesn't want to do chemo for some reasons, right? So if you figure out, what type of alternative medicine he wants to do, if he has a specific answer he gives you, then maybe you'll have something to talk about regarding that, right? So let's say he gives you something, right? Let's say he says some herbal remedy, right? So, what are your expectations? Of this alternative medicine? What are your expectations of this alternative medicine? What do you know? Like, find out everything he knows about this thing. So what do you know? So whatever he tells you, find out all the information regarding it, right? Because you want to make sure that he has actually done some research. If he hasn't done any research into this, that's going to make what you do next a little bit easier, right? Because you're going to say, or you're going to, if he gives you unrealistic expectations or he tells you he doesn't know anything, right? You're going to want to make sure you educate him on the success of these treatments, right? Well, you can't, tell him, you can't make the decision for him. You need to make sure that he knows all the information, which you can already assume how we're going to go about the solution part of this pipeline in just a moment. Let's ask a few more questions here, right? So, what type of alternative medicine do you want to do? What are your expectations? What do you know about it? Is there anything you have against about chemo? What do you know about chemotherapy? So go ahead and ask him that. What do you know about chemo? Is there a reason you don't want chemo? Now, in some cases, he might say, like, I've had loved ones who have taken chemo and it takes the life out of them and I don't want to go down that pathway. That's fair enough, right? As long as he understands the implications regarding the decision he makes, he's allowed to make that decision, right? We're not, as much as we would like to tell this person to do the thing that's going to prolong the life the longest, because that's our natural instinct as a physician, we have to allow them to make their own decision. And it's going to be tough to grasp that concept, right? I believe that, personally, I found that was the hardest concept to grasp, because you always want to make sure that people are going to have the longest and healthiest lives possible. Remember, it's always up to them. So we've asked a bunch of questions over here. So let's go ahead down to the problem part, right? Where we want to go ahead and state what the problem is going to be. You can state this out loud, right? So you can say the problem is you can prolong your life by, let's say, it's 4 years, right? We said 5 years if or 1 year without. So by 4 years with standard treatment. However, you would like to pursue alternative options. Like to seek alternative options. There we go. Okay, so this is our problem, right? You can say this out loud to make sure that the person who's in the room with you, the actor, agrees with what you're saying, to make sure you have a correct understanding of the situation. So you can prolong your life by 4 years with standard treatment. However, you choose to seek alternative options. So that's correct. And the person in the room say, yes, that is correct. Now it comes down to the solution part. And like I said, it's going to be difficult to let this person do what they want, but it's going to be somewhat of what you need to do, but you have to make sure you do it in the right way. So what are our solutions here, right? We're going to have a bunch of different solutions. Let's make a little bit of room here. Solution number one. Remember, we have to have our two. You're normally going to have your two extremes. So you can go get those two extremes out of the way right away. So you can go ahead and say, okay, you can pursue alternative treatment without question. You can seek alternative treatment. No questions asked. So this is one side of the extreme, right? Telling them you can pursue alternative treatment. I won't even ask any questions. Okay, bye, go do it. It was nice knowing you, right? So that's option number one. Now we'll have our next extreme, right? Which is going to be, no, I simply won't let you. Then you'll have, no, I simply won't let you do that, which right away we both know these two extremes are not helping the balance we need, right? We want a balance between respect for patient autonomy and for looking out for the patient's best interest. Well, both of these things don't really help, right? And the third option, similar to the path we saw with the birth control, right, was, educate him on alternative medicine. Make sure he understands the likely results. And with our three solutions here, right? I mean, you pretty much know which one we're going to be going with, right? So in most cases, you're going to have this. You're going to have, the two extremes, which are going to violate two different, ethical principles, right? So example, we have patient autonomy being violated in one. We'll take a look at those right now, actually. So let's go ahead and cross these out, right? This one over here, right away, okay, you can go and seek treatment, right? Well, you don't even know if he knows anything about these alternative treatments. He might have just seen a show on TV where somebody, claimed to have been suffering from something and then a faith healer healed them, for example, right? So, he might have just seen that or read something about it on the internet or had a family member just, tell him it for no reason. And then that's what he's going on 100%. So this is not looking out for the best interest. So not in the patient's best interest. No, not in the patient's best interest, right? He could be walking into a death trap, right? If he doesn't know what he's getting into, he is signing a contract without reading the fine print, right? You want to make sure that doesn't happen. Well, over here, simply telling him you won't let him, you don't have that, you don't have that ability, right? He is of sane mind. He is competent, so it means he can make his own decisions. Although you want to make sure he prolongs his life as long as possible, maybe he just simply doesn't want to. So this is not respecting patient autonomy. So not respecting patient autonomy. There we go. So, once again, we can't just go there. So these are the two extremes that we're obviously not going to follow. It's still important to mention them, right? You have to go ahead and say, I could just let you go ahead and do this treatment. However, it wouldn't be in your best interest because you may not understand what the limitations are of alternative medicine. But I can't simply just tell you not to do it because although I may personally not believe in alternative medicine, I'm not respecting your own decision if I just, prevent you from doing it, right? So those are how you can go ahead and say these two things over here. But make sure you actually say why you're not going to do them to show them that you've looked at both sides of the story and you understand what's wrong with some of these pathways. Well, this one over here is going to be the good pathway, right? Which is going to be the one where you educate him and you inform him of the, what's up with alternative medicine, right? So give him a little bit of information, give him some reading material that you, believe in, and obviously not biased things. Try to give him things that are actually, fair scientific research regarding, what happens with alternative medicine, right? To see what happens with it. So this is the solution we're going to pick, right? We're going to pick educate the patient. Educate the patient, let him make the final decision. Educate the patient and let him make the final decision, right? So that's really the pathway we're going to go. You're going to, you ask him if that's okay, right? You're going to say, look, I'm going to provide you with some information regarding alternative medicine. I want you to take a weekend to think about it and then come see me first thing next week after you've read all this information and we can discuss it further if you'd like, right? So you can say, does that sound okay? Does it sound good to you? Always try to get them to say, oh, this sounds like a good pathway, right? Try to get the person you're working with to make sure that they approve of what you said, right? And if they say no, well, then you can go ahead and work back to try to find a better solution for them, right? And obviously, hopefully you went down the right pathway, right? There's normally going to be a pathway that they're going to say, okay, and they're going to go along with you if you pick that correct pathway, for instance. So you say, does that sound good? And then you give, your specific plan of action, right, to end it off, right? So you'll say, here is some materials, so you can give him information. So you can actually say, here's some information And take the weekend to think about it, and then get back to me once you're finished, and we can see if this is still what you want to do, right? So give him all the thing, make sure he understands, the limitations, or the how long he'll stay alive without chemotherapy or standard treatment, and with alternative medicine. So all these questions up here, make sure he understands those limitations, right? So that's how I would go about solving this case, right? Remember, there's always going to be, well, no, most of the case, I shouldn't say always. There's going to be most cases where there'll be a right pathway, and you're going to normally have your two extremes, right? So you're always going to try to look for those two extremes. There's going to be leaning too much in one direction, leaning too much in the right direction, and then Goldilocks just right in the middle. You're normally going to go with that Goldilocks in most cases, but we'll see some where you don't, right? There's no absolutes. It's going to be awesome. So I'll see you guys in the next video. We'll take a look at another case.